People took to the streets in LA and across the country last week for a day without immigrants, protesting President Donald Trump's immigration crackdowns. Those policies could cause widespread economic disruptions and drive up prices for consumers.
We have employees that are dreamers. We have friends and family that have stood by us throughout the years, working with us side by side.
Teddy's Red Tacos reported a 50% drop in sales at its 10 locations in January after the inauguration. Workers there say they're avoiding going outside and using rideshares instead of public transportation. LA Times reporter Marisa Gerber joined us with more. Marisa, always good to see you.
Good to be here. Thank you, Lisa.
We all know how critical immigrants are, and undocumented immigrants, to not just our region, but to our entire state, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially in LA County, some data shows that, $18 billion a year is pumped into the economy through paying taxes and spending power from undocumented immigrants. 1 in 5 people in LA County is either undocumented or lives with someone who is. So, yeah, I mean, truly every sector. Someone I spoke to said, whether or not you know it, we all interact with someone who's undocumented every day. So, yeah, a huge part of our local economy.
Yeah, and you wrote about how it was all so intertwined. There might be a film director and people in his employ or her employ, people who are undocumented. So they're really woven into our fabric, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally part of the social fabric. The person you mentioned could be a nanny or a caregiver caring for an elderly person, or a gardener, or someone that works at a restaurant, street vendors. You may be your favorite burrito shop around the corner. So many places.
Yeah, you really zeroed in on that little niche, the street vendors. Tell us what they're experiencing.
Yeah, so I worked on this story with my colleague Marisa Gomez, and she spoke with an ice cream cart vendor. So a guy who sells ice cream from a cart. He's been doing so in LA for 20 years. His name is Mario, and he said, in recent weeks, he's been a lot more fearful. He started carrying a little red card around that has his rights on it. So if he were to be approached by immigration agents, he would know what to say. He said he's really cut back on his hours to limit exposure. Sometimes he goes different routes than he has before. So, he's lived here a really long time, but he said this recent changes and the rhetoric from Trump has really, really spooked him.
What was interesting in your article that I didn't realize is that some vendors are moving toward getting into the food truck business because they feel a little bit safer.
Right. Yeah, that was someone else that Melissa also spoke to, the food truck group. So it's a woman named Kimberly Tapia and her mom, Maria Ponce. They own this company that rents out food trucks. And they said they'd seen an increase in people that previously had food carts that said they wanted to trade them in for food trucks, because that way they would at least have a physical barrier, a way that if ICE agents were to come up, they could, close the door. And they said that gave them a sense of comfort to at least have a bit of a physical barrier.
We are aware that there are so many immigrants among us, and the need for them is become particularly urgent after the wildfires. We are 12,000 homes down, and we have so many undocumented workers in the construction industry. How are we going to rebuild?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge part of that sector. I spoke to a construction worker named Rodrigo who has also been living in the U.S. for decades. He actually runs a small construction company, and he has several other men who are undocumented working for him. And he said recently some of them have been saying, hey, I don't want to go to that job, specifically in certain regions, like San Clemente was one job. He said they've been swapping text messages about, hey, I'm at Home Depot. Do you see any ICE agents? People are really becoming increasingly fearful. He said personally, he was kind of taking a wait and see approach. He wasn't too afraid yet, but he said he was going to be more cautious than before.
Yeah, and we're all curious to see what it'll do to food prices, because up in the valley where all our food comes from, completely dependent on undocumented workers to a great extent, and many of them are not showing up for work. But you also wrote about people that are helping these folks and the resiliency of the communities.
Yeah, absolutely. All the people I spoke to said, they were fearful, or the people I and Melissa spoke to said they're fearful, but they're still going to work. They said, they care about this country. They pay taxes here. They work here. They have a lot of pride. A lot of them, as entrepreneurs, have a lot of pride. And they say, even if some people in this country don't appreciate what they do, they took a lot of solace in knowing that their children, who in many cases were U.S. citizens, knew what they contributed to this country. And that was giving them a lot of solace in this time.
Marisa Gerber, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. For more stories in your communities, click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV for the latest information, balanced coverage, weather updates every 10 minutes, and more. We'll see you then.